This is Scott Spade, and you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Welcome once again to Live and in Color with Wolfie D. And my man Jimmy across the street. What's going on, my man?
Not much, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, why you gotta be all low, man? I was high, you was low. Just
it's
my man Jimmy across the street. Hey, bud. Hey, how you doing?
How's it doing, man? How's it going?
Oh, is it because you just drove in?
Yeah, I just drove in.
4,000 hours from your house?
4,000 hours, yeah.
Okay, so everybody knows we kind of pre-record this stuff, and yeah, so you drove in back from Jackson. We're going to have that episode next week, the recap of the Hall of Fame. But Jimmy just got home, like literally just got home. I just got home like 2 hours ago. So yeah, kind of sucks for everybody. Well, not me so much. I mean, I had a good time.
That was awesome.
Jimmy had to drive further, and he picked up Ben Jordan. He brought Ben Jordan there. That was awesome.
I was happy to do that.
Hanging out with Ben.
Oh, it was super cool, man. You know, super cool. Love that guy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. We love absolutely on this show. Today, though, we got Scott Spade coming on, man.
Very cool.
You worked that one out. I've known Scott for quite a while, man. I think I worked with him a little bit up in Chicago for POWW. POW. Yeah, it was a good wrestling organization, man. I think they housed Jamie for a long time. I mean, Jamie lived up there. I mean, he was like, seriously, I mean, he didn't have to, I think he trained some people. I don't know what was going on with Jamie up there.
Jamie was just spreading the Jamie, spreading the Jamie.
How do you spread Jamie?
I have no idea.
I can tell you what Jerry Jarrett said. You know that one?
I'm not sure. Tell me.
Yeah, he told Jamie, he said, you don't plow deep, but you lay a lot of seed. I don't know if you understand that or anybody else does, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's got a lot of kids.
He does.
You don't have to put it very far in.
Yeah. Yeah,
I love Jamie, man. But anyway, we're gonna get into that thing. But anyway, man. So we've got this top 10 heels, man.
Yeah, Scott loves top 10s, man. I've had him on my podcast, and he's been texting me. He's like, man, I just listened to the first episode that, Ben Jordan was on. And so obviously Ben Jordan episode. And then he said, I went totally backwards to the beginning, and he's caught up. And now here's what he said he did. And he's going to, you're going to love this. But he said that I actually make my top 10 list before I listen to the episode. And then I play along. And I was like, wow. Scott, are you our dream listener?
And I hope everybody else does that, or they at least got it in their mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do too, man. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, man. Unfortunately, you know the deal that Michelle has got just since the other day. She's got Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
She's got a doctor's appointment. And in my heart stuff that I was telling everybody, I've got one too. But I'm not Jamie. Right. I love Jamie, and I love Jamie. I love Jamie, and I'm going to be back. I promise you this. But I need you to hold the fort down because we do an hour, and I need that hour. We've got a couple of appointments to go to, and I should be back within the next hour, and that's what we do right here.
Yeah,
we do an hour. So. Give me that second and let me come back. You two, I trust you guys. Of course, I trust you. Scott, known him for a minute. I'm glad to have him on. I apologize to him that I got to go, but I'm going to be back. I promise. So, I mean, it's like one of those things when you hear that the main event's not here. The main event's not here.
Buy some time.
Buy some time. Yeah. You guys got to put in some time for a minute until the main event gets here. If you can do that for me, I'd appreciate it. Gotta go. Got to hit these doctor's appointments, and I will be back. I promise you. I'm not Jamie. I will be back.
Okay. Be right back.
All right.
after these messages.
George Clooney and Brad Pitt's new movie Wolves is on Apple TV Plus September 27th.
That's where I want you to be now.
So if you want to see George Clooney and Brad Pitt, go to Apple TV Plus.
You got to start the story there.
Or if you want to see Brad Pitt and George Clooney, go to Apple TV Plus.
I am enjoying the show.
And if you want to see their new movie Wolves,
You can't do it, I'm going to help you out. I can do it, so do it.
definitely go to Apple TV Plus.
Admit it, it's cool. Okay, fine, it was very cool.
Wolves, streaming September 27th on Apple TV Plus. Rated R.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Hey folks, to get your official Live and in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com/live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. And yes, it's true. That was not in Wolfie's voice. This is, of course, Jimmy across the street filling in for Wolfie D today because Wolfie has some things he's dealing with right now, health issues that he's helping his loved one with right now. So I am taking this on as a solo project. And whenever something's solo, I got to bring in a buddy of mine. And we're doing today, the plan was for top 10 heels, right? So the best idea that I could think of is bring in one of my favorite heels. Now, to be honest, this was planned to have Wolfie D involved, and this was a whole deal. But man, it really paid off perfectly by welcoming one of my buddies and a great heel in pro wrestling, the one and only Scott Spade. Scott, thank you for coming on and doing this with me, man.
Jimmy, it's an honor for me too. It stinks that Wolfie couldn't make it, but there's some things that are actually more important. They have to get taken care of, so we wish nothing but the best for him and Michelle. But yeah, I'm totally honored to be here, and I really appreciate your good compliments there. That means the world to me, so I really appreciate that.
Oh, dude, of course, man. I mean, the cool people that got us together, I mean, I don't even know you as much as I want to know you, but all the cool people that we're friends with that say such great things, Shane Morton, Rick Reynolds, Ben Jordan, I mean, that's just a few of them that give you a glowing review. Jamie Dundee, they all love you, man. So by that token, I think you're a great guy.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I would love to get to know everybody, including yourself at the top of the list more. It's too bad we're so far apart in distance, but hey, that's what phones are for.
And that's what reunions are for, right? Exactly. Yeah. But you've been awesome. And, I had you on my show. I had a great time on that, got to learn about your story and get to know, a little more about you. And if you haven't heard that, go back and check that out. Excellent show on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. Scott tells his whole story, maybe not the whole story, but a good portion of it. And we had a lot of fun and learned about a new guy that now I'm friends with. So it's even better, man. So Scott, we're talking top 10 heels today, man. This was a good one. And I got to give you credit. This was your idea, brother. So thank you.
Yeah. I saw your top 10 lists and I'm like, I really love that idea. And when I started going back, listening to the shows, to the beginning of your top 10 list, I'm thinking, let me make one of my own before I listen to it and see how much it compares to you guys. And that's kind of how this all got started.
Yeah. So who do you fall on more? Do you fall Wolfie or me on the lists, you think?
Kind of half and half. The best way I could do it, you were in the business for sure. I would say fan side, your side, and then the worker side, Wolfie side. So it's kind of a mixture of both.
Oh, man, that's the perfect blend, actually. And that's actually the way that it kind of comes across on the show, we hope. I always try to represent the listener, the fan, the best I can. And, when it comes to Wolfie, obviously, he's got that worker side. But the cool part about it is all the great workers that I know, such as yourself, are also great fans, man. So let's go ahead and get it started. And since you're my guest today, Scott, I'm going to let you take number 10.
All right. Number 10 for me is he's actually the reason why I am in the business in the first place. He was my hero growing up. This version of him was not that hero, though, but he made a mark in one single incident when he turned heel, and that was Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Oh, man. Dude, what an impact, right? When he became heel. I mean, that's so true, bro. Man,
he was the ultimate babyface for 10 years, and then when he turned and formed the NWO and dropped that leg on Macho Man at Bash at the Beach, and the garbage that came in the ring was just unbelievable. And that happened in 96. Yeah. And that brought me back 20 years before that, when fans actually used to do that. But he got that reaction 20 years later.
Dude.
So the Hogan heel run was, it was what it was, but just that moment itself, I think he belongs on that list.
I totally agree with you, man. And, maybe he'll be on mine, maybe not. We'll see. But, man, I do remember that impact. And I remember my brother and I, we would go to my uncle's house, and he maybe or maybe didn't have an option for those free pay-per-views back in the day. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, man, when he dropped that leg on Macho Man, it was like the world shattered, bro. Right? I mean,
it was the only thing I wish that did not happen. As much as I love Bobby Heenan, when he walked down that aisle, he actually said, "What side is he on?"
Right.
And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, wait a minute. And then I'm like, oh, I kind of spoiled it a little bit, but
it did. Yeah. It did fit Brain's character pretty well, because he never liked Hogan.
Right.
So
exactly.
So now that he was doing the babyface, color commentator guy almost, but I know what you mean. It did spill it. It did spoil it.
So they were like, what do you mean, what side is he on? Of course he's coming out for WCW, and then you dropped the bomb on him. So it worked.
Yeah, it was great, man. No question. Well, my number 10 is, funny enough, is somewhat related to the story. I mean, a little later, but man, I think the list that I made in front of me is, I made this list out of the heels that they were heels at my favorite moment for them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So obviously all great heels become a baby face eventually. The fans will turn them if they're super good at it,
That is
so
true.
It's tricky, right? And then the way that Hogan did it was such a different thing for the business, man. It was so crazy. So Hogan is a great pick, but my number 10, and some people will say, Jimmy, you're an idiot. What are you doing? This guy should be higher, but is the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Yeah. To me, he was that ultimate heel. Like I said, he represented the beauty of the 80s, man, the wealth, greed, and I think he was also somewhat of a Vince McMahon type deal. Plus, all those vignettes and interviews he did where he would kick the kids basketball, or, make the guy eat, was it dog food or something? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that he did.
Yeah, it's his foot and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, make the girl bark like a dog.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you. And then I remember he goes to a swimming pool and tells it to close it all down, and they're like, "We can't do that. This is the busiest time," or something. And
the newlyweds out of the hotel suite.
Yes. Anyway, so if I've messed up one of your future picks, I don't want to. But $1 Million Man to me is my number 10.
Absolutely, too. And then to go on your point too about how the fans turn baby faces into heels, or the other way around. The best baby face is a freshly turned heel, and the other way around. When they're at the top of their game as a baby face and they turn heel, that's when you're going to get the ultimate heat.
Absolutely, Scott. I couldn't agree with you more. And $1 Million Man is another one of those, because he had an incredible babyface run down south for Bill Watts. I'm sure it was a bit of a surprise to Mid-South fans when he became the biggest villain in history at one point.
When you turn on the top star of the Junkyard Dog, you're going to get some heat.
Exactly. I love it. Well, what's your number 9, Scott?
Number 9 for me is the only non-wrestler on my list. In the Attitude Era, again, I was a big fan of the classic era, that classic 80s. Wrestling kind of went down a little bit in the early 90s, and then mid-90s it kind of came back up again in that Attitude Era. And the one driving force that everybody in the world hated was the man that ran the company, the guy that everybody in the world wanted to say, screw you to your boss, and that's Vince McMahon.
Yeah, man.
Everybody in the world wanted to be Stone Cold Steve Austin for that 2 or 3 year run where he could flip off his boss, beat up his boss, and tell his boss to go F himself. I think a lot of that was really Vince, because I think that's kind of the person he is, as we've seen lately, all about the stuff that comes out about him.
Oh, no doubt.
But I think he wanted to do that for the longest time, too. And then back to the $1 Million Man thing, a lot of people say that was his own gimmick. If he was a wrestler, that would have been his gimmick.
Yeah.
So he gave his own personal taste to Teddy DiBiase for his gimmick. But I think, Vince was such a hot heel at the time with the whole corporate group that he had, the Ministry, and then he had Boss Man and Shamrock, and just the appeal to the everyday person of the asshole boss trying to kick down the working guy.
Right.
And it was so hot for like 2 years straight.
Definitely. And I mean, some people still hate him, you know what I mean? And for good reason, on other reasons. But I mean, yeah, dude, honestly, some people are going to be like, what's Scott got next? I can't wait to hear 8 through 1 from you now, because your number 10 and number 9 are probably number 1 and 2 for some people. You know what I'm saying? So,
you know me, I'm such an old school guy. I'm not going to have anything current on there, because a lot of people know my feelings on it. I'm not going to really say too much, because I know a lot of people give me shit for not agreeing with how things are done nowadays, but that's just the old school guy in me. Yeah.
Well, that feeling alone makes you more than welcome as a guest on any of my podcasts at any time, my friend. So let's just say that we're old school as can be, I should say. So yeah. So my number 9. Now, this one, I went back to my childhood, honestly, but when I think about it, he also proves the point of that most of your heels, true heels, are your good people. And I know some people may not like this guy, but I don't know how you couldn't. And the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, is my number 9.
Yeah, I unfortunately never got to meet him, but man, did he. And I love the evil as evil can be, and he was the lead guy at being evil.
Yeah, so good at being evil. I was scared of him, and I still think that some people feel like that he was a full-on Satanist. I really do.
Yeah,
and because he really came in at that time of the 1980s, where it was Satanic Panic or whatever they called that.
Especially down in Florida too, where it's real heavy religious.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And we had him on the podcast, and I asked him that question. I said, did you take anything from Anton LaVey or the Church of Satan or anything like that? He was like, no, it was all from the Far East. And it makes sense now, too. He was like, I was this evil demon from the Far East, and I pretended like that had infected me. And, it was genius, man. It fell into that satanic panic thing, but it also came from that perspective of he was a well-traveled man by that time. Dude, that golden spike on Dusty's forehead. I mean, dude, he scared me to death as a kid. And then having him on the podcast and hearing him interview on different shoot interviews and so many other podcasts that he's been on, and getting to know Kevin, man, what a great guy. And we lost a great human being when we lost a huge mind of the industry. It's crazy. He never really had a run in WWE. I think he told us that he had an opportunity, but he had other opportunities going well because he had just built this nice gym in Florida, and he had focused on that, and that was his one time to go to WWE as far as a talent, and he passed on it to keep his gym going in the Keys, which, I understand that.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure, especially when you were on that long run in WCW working your ass off. You'd want to take a break for a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
In 1976, he was there for Vince Sr.,
right.
A show from Madison Square Garden where he worked Brody.
Right.
So he was there pretty early, here.
Yeah. But. Yeah. And I guess when I say he didn't work for Vince, I didn't mean, the dad.
Actual run. Yeah.
Right. Which is a shame. I would have loved to have seen him in the big machine, man. But
with the mind that he had, and it sucks that there's so many of our heroes, that are in their late 60s and early 70s now, and more than half of them are gone.
Yeah.
It just rips my heart out, because especially somebody like him, he is absolutely one of the greatest minds that has ever lived.
Amen.
Technology and all that stuff, and just think of the land of the giants, like they always say back in the old days.
Right.
And how small he was, even though he was big and muscular and bulky.
Right.
He was 5'7" maybe.
At best.
5'8" on a generous day. Yeah. But he created that image of him so scary where he was that small and he was that feared of a guy.
Yeah.
That's how good he was.
Yeah. And you're right. He always had a great body. You know, that tree of woe. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, jeez.
And I've heard, some very, very tough gentlemen would always cover up their privates whenever he was running in on that tree of woe because he didn't necessarily aim it properly.
I think my favorite move of his was the double stomp.
Oh, dude. Yes.
That was real, too.
Oh, man, seriously, I love all of Kevin Sullivan's stuff. And I feel like I came to really appreciate him later on. You know, I was more afraid of him early on, but later on, I really started to appreciate him. And, you know, of course, they stuck him in that Dungeon of Doom gimmick, which on paper is pretty rough. But actually, in follow through, it's actually pretty rough. But on paper, it works, you know. But he had all those guys built for Hogan, basically. That was the deal.
It was one of those things where it was so bad, it was good.
Right.
It was so goofy, but it was good at the same time because it was goofy.
Exactly. I totally agree. Well, who do you have for number 8, my friend?
All right, number 8. Most of this list, too, I based it around, total old school, white hot heat.
Yeah.
As they call it. Not just
so
regular.
Dante and Mephisto? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, exactly. Number 8 for me, he was a heel most of his early run. NWA, and then he came over to WWF 80-81 and one of my favorite matches of all time in Madison Square Garden where he juiced like he had a water hose coming down his head with Pat Patterson. Then he went back to Mid-Atlantic, was a monster heel, and then he came back and he started the Gulf War with Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter.
Man.
Had massive death threat type heat.
Yeah.
When he did the Iraqi sympathizer gimmick with General Adnan. And, oh, my God, I couldn't believe how – I mean, I'm not surprised they did it because back then you could do anything with wrestling, and I love that about it. But that's one of the – I remember on your one list that's one thing they couldn't do today.
Right.
With that kind of gimmick because everybody's so sensitive to everything.
Seriously.
But unbelievable heat.
And, you know, that opens up a good conversation there because as a current heel wrestling today, do you feel like you have to kind of be on your P's and Q's a little bit as far as what you could have said maybe even 10 years ago? Now you can't.
Some places, I mean, obviously you cannot do zero any kind of racial anything whatsoever.
Right, of course. Yeah.
When you could in the old days. But again, if I was to do anything like that, I would always get the okay with somebody who I was working with first before I would say anything.
Right. And dude, we're bald white guys. We got to be careful with that anyway, man. You know, people get the wrong idea about all this stuff, you know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then there's certain companies that are very, very family friendly.
Right.
So you can, again, I was never one to swear because to me, if
cheap
you swear, that's cheap heat. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's no need for that.
Right.
But I think Sergeant Slaughter, when he was in, NWA United States champion and he had his privates with him, Nelson and Don Kernodle, and it's just, why would you wouldn't want a drill instructor yelling and spitting, screaming in your face.
Right.
That's kind of his thing. But then he took it to the next level when he went to Vince again and really did just an insane job. I never forget when he did the interview segment with Mean Gene and he had Hulk's shirt on the flagpole and he lit it on fire.
I know.
I couldn't believe that because Hulk was my hero and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna burn it. What's he gonna do to the Hulk?
Yeah. Yeah, and they knew they couldn't burn the American flag, and I don't even know that they would have, but they knew they couldn't. I guess to say they wouldn't is crazy. I feel like they probably would have if they could have, but
Vince probably would in his twisted ways. Yeah,
but burning the Hogan shirt was the same in our eyes, So and it's funny, man, because I was telling my brother this, and you'll relate to this too because you're an action figure guy. I was like, man, Sarge was never my favorite wrestler, probably because a lot of times he was heel, but when he became a G.I. Joe, he automatically became my favorite G.I. Joe. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then that helped him in my eyes as a wrestler. Then he became higher up as a babyface. But man, he was an incredible heel everywhere he went, Mid-Atlantic with his Slaughter's Marauder. I mean, dude, it was all great. And then, to me, when he did that was the ultimate heel turn. And you're right. Death threats.
Guy, too. He can move around really well, too.
Oh, yeah.
On your underrated list. He could his ass off. He could do that crazy chest first bump into the turnbuckle in the corner, and then he would go right over the top rope.
Yeah, he was talented.
He was a really, really good worker.
Yeah, that match with Pat Patterson definitely is one of the best.
Fight. That's one of my favorite matches of all time.
Oh man, so good. Yeah, love you, Sarge. Got to meet him last year, and he's a businessman. I can't knock him for that, but I did ask him about a podcast stint, and maybe that'll happen down the line. We'll see.
Yeah, I met him at Cauliflower one year. He's very nice.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So number 8 for me is coming from, a perspective of, again, a kid loving pro wrestling and hating the guy that, is sometimes honestly just ends up being better than the babyface that I love. This guy could be number 1 on any list and there would be no question. Nobody would question it, whatever. But man, when you think of that cool, cocky heel that the guys hate and the girls love, nobody fits that better than Ravishing Rick Rude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, you got Rick Rude, you got him painting his tights. I mean, the airbrush, he was the early airbrush guy, Rob Van Dam wouldn't have had anything without Rick Rude doing that first. And, even if Rob would have done it anyway, eventually Rick still did it first. And that one time with having Cheryl Roberts on his crotch, dude, put yourself in Jake's perspective, right? What if they had your wife? It's great heat, man.
Oh, absolutely. I know Jake said he hated it because he said if he did it, he would rip his pants off. And I don't know if he was just working it because that's what they did or if he legitimately hated it. Right. Me, personally, I'll do anything for heat or for business, within reason. But if they did that for the angle, I wouldn't care. Right. That's just because I know it would be over.
But you would get the perspective of that this is good. This is good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it wouldn't offend me.
But in the perspective of this, if you really didn't like this guy and this was a real contest here, we're talking. That's a different story, man. But
have your wife's face on the other guy's crotch. Yeah, that's pretty insulting.
Oh man. But yeah, anyway, Ravishing Rick Rude, such a sad story, so many rumors about his demise and things like that. And, I do wish that he could have been stuck around a lot longer, not only for his family and life, but man, I just feel like he could still have so much to offer to the business, Oh,
for sure. Yeah, he was training to make a comeback too. He was getting ready in shape to get back in the ring.
Right.
That happened too. And he left, I think in 2000 so early too, that was before the days of interviews.
I know.
As far as I know, I don't think he's ever had an interview that's ever come out, talking about business or anything.
Man, I almost want to say I've seen something, but yeah, I think you might be right, man.
I know RF Video was doing shoot interviews by then, but I don't think
title match, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. Listeners out there, if y'all know of a Rick Rude shoot interview, let us know. We want to watch it, man. So
yeah, he was known as one of the most legitimate, tough guys. Group, man. He was, world champion arm wrestler, and yeah, he was really, really good.
When Hawk and Animal say that he's the tough one.
Yeah, that's tough.
I mean, can you imagine just being a regular guy going into Grandma B's? Just, I'm going to it's after work. I'm going to have a drink, hang out. And then you're all of a sudden getting smashed in the face by Rick Rude. Just, I don't know if it was that bad, but still,
Yeah, somebody not want to screw with, that's for sure.
No. And that you would almost say like Rick's the smaller one of all of them, but he's, the toughest.
Just he's more cut and lean. But
right. Man, what a great body too, dude. Man,
and that if you had a top 10 list of bodies, he would definitely be on that list.
Yeah.
And it never changed. He's one of the like Lex Luger. He was around for so long, and that body never ever changed.
Maintained it, and maybe that's partially what happened to him.
Eventually. Yeah, a lot of those guys hard as shoes. Yeah, absolutely.
Man. Anyway, well, what about your number 7, Scott?
All right, number 7 for me. Usually on most lists that I make of this guy, he's at the top 3 with everything. He's my number 1 finisher guy. To me, like I said on your guys' show before, that he's my number 1 influence in psychology, and he's a guy too that whether he was a babyface or a heel, he didn't do anything different. It's just he took the babyface side or the heel side of the match.
Yeah.
But everything he did was exactly the same. My biggest influence on promos, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Dude. Yeah.
He never changed from when he was a babyface or a heel. His attitude, his moveset, the look, his demeanor, his interviews were just so evil and calculating, and they made you think.
Yeah.
He was it's not that he was necessarily evil, but he was just so, I'm going to hurt you, and I'm going to enjoy doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the biggest heat that he ever got was the feud with Macho Man.
Oh, yeah.
I wish that would have went a little bit longer. And I remember hearing him that he said when he grabbed Elizabeth by the hair and slapped her, that was like one of those goosebump moments where I don't know what you could possibly do to get any more, immediate heat than that.
I know. I mean, Hogan gets heat for touching her butt, Yeah. And slapping her, that's a totally different story, man.
I think the snake bite was already done, and then she came in.
Right.
And he grabbed her by the hair and, did a working slap, but you just hear that gasp from the crowd. It's like everybody screamed like, oh my God, he hit her.
Yeah.
And then the promo he does afterwards for they do the Tuesday in Texas, and then they have a Saturday night's main event after that. And he goes, I hope you bring Elizabeth with you because I want to do it again. He's rubbing up and down his body. It felt so good. I want to slap her again.
Yes.
Let me touch her. And it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You can have a heel like that push the buttons that far.
Yeah.
That's a guy that really knows what he's doing.
Oh man, and like you said, the promos, bro. I mean, come on, he's got that low demeanor about him, and it's got that, like he never, and he just, and the darkness that he had dealt with from his childhood and the stories, he brought that in, and I mean, I feel like it's a shame that it happened to him, and if everything that he says happened to him, it's an absolute tragedy that happened to him.
Yes.
But when it comes down to it, it almost partially built the man that he was, and
you have that built-in dark side.
Yeah, definitely. Well, he may show up in a little bit, so let's go to mine then. I guess we'll continue. So number 7 for me, there's great, and there's awesome, and there's amazing, and there is the best, and there is number 1, and all of that is eclipsed by perfect. And the one and only Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. Now, Curt is one of those that, to me, he could have been anything. He was such a great, incredible in-ring athlete. Honestly, there's guys today that I can draw direct lines to Mr. Perfect from. I mean, obviously, you've got your Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, whatever you want to call him. You've got so many of those guys, but then you've also got a lot of these young guys with these crazy bumps they take. Curt invented that stuff, man. Those animated bumps that Shawn Michaels totally ripped off, and, for good reason. Incredible stuff. Some people may have said it was a little too much, but honestly, it was his style. And I love everything about Curt Hennig, so I'm never going to say that was too much. But, the vignettes, man, I mean, that could have easily made him a babyface today. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, for sure.
Those single men, the catching his own football, hitting his own, I
heard a lot of those, they didn't have to take too many takes on because he actually was really good at all that stuff.
That's amazing. If so, I hope that's the truth, because that makes it even better.
They can throw a football like that and catch it themselves, but he was good at everything as far as I've ever heard stories on, talking about those. I think I remember hearing Bobby Heenan say, in his interviews about it, like he was just so good on his promos and that vignette himself. They didn't have to take too many takes on putting that package together.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm glad you added that because I didn't know that, but that's very cool, man. But
yeah, one of those guys too, where that word smooth.
Oh my gosh, it's crisp, smooth, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, and having that second generation advantage too, makes all those guys that much better.
Oh, yeah. The Axe, Larry the Axe Hennig, man, what a tough guy. I mean, for any AWA fan, who Larry the Axe Hennig is, or really any wrestling fan. But, when it comes down to it, two completely different wrestlers. And even, his son, who had a little run too, Joe, unfortunately didn't have the same that his father had, that perfect wrestling. It's almost impossible to follow him as far as if you're taking on some sort of name that you're his son. I would hate to be in those shoes as a wrestler.
David Flair, David Sammartino.
Oh, there you go. Totally
do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, number 7, Mr. Perfect for me, man. And I just think he's such a great heel, and at his best, he was that incredible. And dude, he even kept it going into WCW when he was a perfect fit for the Horsemen. You know what I'm saying? And screws him over just doing that Freebird finish. I love that, man. With hairs.
He tore the shoes off of Ric Flair's robe.
Yeah.
I just watched the match the other day, actually. He came out to the ring with the sleeveless red robe.
Yeah. So good.
It's easy to get heat, too, when you put yourself off like you can't do nothing wrong, and that definitely gets under people's skin.
Oh, completely. It's perfect. Go ahead with your number 6, brother.
Number 6 is going back a ways. Most people remember him as a manager, but this guy actually, I believe he started wrestling in the mid or late 30s.
Wow.
And I know you're going to know him real well, but like I said, mostly he was known in the 70s and 80s as a manager. He's one of the big 3 in New York, and it's not Captain Lou, and it's not the Grand Wizard. So Captain Lou was a little goofy for me, even though he was great at heat, and then the Grand Wizard was, non-physical, mostly talking. Right. And then he did
Jimmy Hart style kind of.
Yeah, he didn't get in the way, but he never got bumped.
Right, that's a great point. Yeah,
Captain Lou did too, but my number 6 is a guy that actually we used to file his teeth and bite people, and he was scared he made everybody in Japan absolutely terrified. Yeah. That's Classy Freddie Blassie.
The Hollywood fashion plate, man.
Yep. I've heard stories about him that he, in the 50s when he was in Japan, he was an absolute, legendary terrorizer over there with Ricky Dozan, like the originator of Japanese wrestling. And he would file his teeth down, and they called him the vampire of the whatever their language translation is of that over there. And I think at least 2 legitimate recorded cases of people having heart attacks in the crowd because of his antics.
Wow.
That's like actually documented.
Wow.
At least 2 happened. And then from there, he was a huge star in Georgia. I know in the 60s, I think he was a babyface. He might have been a heel there too, but I'm leaning more towards babyface for that one. And then he went to LA where they had the WWA company, and he had that huge, nasty feud with John Tolos. There's a lot of pictures and matches you could see with them in cage matches, and they're just bloody beyond bloody.
Yeah.
And then manager later, and used his mouth instead of his physical things. But yeah, he just had his promos. They were so good. A lot of them were funny, pencil that geek and insulting people and stuff. And yeah, he was a monster heel 30 years before people even knew him. He was a manager.
Yeah.
He was around for a long time.
This is why I like you, Scott. You bring the in-depth historian stuff, man. That's why we need you around here, man.
I'm a detail guy for sure.
I love it. And Freddie Blassie, man. So many of us just think of him as the cane-carrying manager for the Iron Sheik and Nikolai.
He looked like he was 80 years old when he was managing them. But
he did, Yeah.
He created a lot of terror for a long, long time with all those guys.
The pencil neck geek, God, man, always looked great. Just when he was a wrestler, he looked like a wrestler. When he was a manager, he looked like a manager. Yes, and every bit of it, he could have punched you in the mouth and it would have hurt. So,
absolutely, or hit you upside the head with the cane for sure.
Exactly, when he had the cane, that was it. Yeah. There's not enough talk about Freddie Blassie, in my opinion. No. I love him. Yeah.
Having a career that was 50 years long, no, it's just that's the sad thing about today too, is that nobody does their research. The young guys in the business, just like any other job. If you want to get good at your job, go back and try to find out about everything about your job to make you better at it. And people don't do that.
Right, exactly. And the cool thing I've always liked about him is he had a great LJN figure. A little nod to the Plastic Sheik here. I know you're, a big LJN expert. So he had a great action figure too, man. I love that. Fit him so well. So, okay, well, my number 6, and we've talked about him already, but I'm going to bring up my reasons for this. Number 6 for me is the man you so greatly described as the one and only Jake the Snake Roberts. And man, it does feel cheap to put him in the lower 10, and I know how you feel, but Jake to me he was one of those guys that became a babyface because he was such a great heel, and the people started cheering with him. And I just remember the stuff he was doing with Warrior, trying to help him against his match again, Papa Shango. I mean, dude, all this stuff, Undertaker. Yep. I mean, and the cool thing is I've actually listened to some of his podcasts. I don't get to check every one of them, but on the ones that I do, he talks about stuff like how he was there early on helping out Undertaker. And, that's cool stuff.
Podcast. Yep.
Yeah, and just a great villain and such a great mind for the business. But the one thing I really loved, and a lot of people laugh at it now, but I really loved when he came into WCW and worked Sting. I know that was such a weird time for him, but, when it comes down to it.
You remember hearing the story about him coming in and he had this multi-million-dollar deal.
Right.
And before, like a couple of days before he was supposed to sign it, Bill Watts came in and pretty much threw the garbage. Yeah.
Yeah, said can't do that. I'm cutting costs around here.
Yep.
But I love that little vignette where I think they're about to do the spin the wheel, make a deal, whatever. Yeah, and
those are so corny. Oh my god!
Like a little dreadnought, bar or something he goes into, and it's a bunch of crazy punk rock. You would have fit in perfectly in that place. Yeah. But it was just like the evilest bar you've ever been into, and Sting's just chilling in there, and Sting comes in and Jake's just chilling in there, and the coal miner's glove. Man, what a interesting match idea that they could have probably had any other match, but whatever. But
little one like that was Sting too, with Big Van Vader with the White Castle of Fear. Do you remember saying that?
That's it. Yes, I do.
That was even worse.
Yes, man. White Castle of Fear. Oh Lord. Yeah. And what was it? The thing that he did that the DDT to Steamboat on. I know he still feels bad about that, but DDTing Steamboat on the concrete, man. Yep. Really rocked Steamboat's world too. I think. I don't know if he's still any better from that, but
that was really, really nasty.
Yeah,
couldn't imagine.
Yeah, that's horrible. But Jake the Snake's number 6. I know we talked about him on your pick, but anyway, when you talk about heels, Jake's got to be on a list.
Yeah, you can't talk about him enough. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, we're at our halfway point, Mr. Spade. I tell you what, let's take a quick break, listen to a couple commercials, and we'll be right back and tell our top 5. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back with more with Jimmy Across the Street and Scott Spade on Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Support for Live and in Color with Wolfie D is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code WOLFIE at manscaped.com. If my math's correct, that's about 8 million balls.
This episode is brought to you by AutoTrader. Look around. What do you see? Cars. Lots of them. And guess what? They're probably on AutoTrader. Whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends, if you see it on the road, you can likely find it on AutoTrader. New, used, electric, and one day, maybe even flying cars. See a car? Find it on AutoTrader. Visit autotrader.com to learn more.
Traveling to see your fave sports team is cool, but traveling with Amex Platinum for the big game is even better.
Right this way.
With access to dedicated card member entrances at select events, you can skip the line.
And one.
And with access to the Centurion Lounge,
he shoots a 3.
You can catch the next game on the way home. That's the powerful backing of American Express. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/withAmex. Card member entrance access not limited to Amex Platinum Card.
All right, we are back with more with the top 10 heels and the one and only Scott Spade as a special guest co-host today on the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. And number 5, Scott Spade, who is your number 5 all-time heel?
Number 5 is the first repeat for me. You had Jake on the last one for my pick. This time I got one of your picks. That is the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
I can't do it, but
I'm not even going to try because I won't even get close to it. I've been around him twice in person, and he is one of the absolute nicest people in the world.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely true that you hear that the baby faces are usually the egotistical guys that are stuck up.
Except Ben Jordan.
Are the nice, quiet, kind guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
And he is one of the best examples of that for sure. You know, very, very soft-spoken, very nice, very humble, and one of the greatest technicians I have ever seen. You know, he's one of the 3 or 4 guys, you know, along with Jake, Harley, and Terry Funk that I my biggest influences as far as ring style goes.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that gimmick put on him, or actually have him be chosen for that by Vince McMahon himself, you know, like we said before, which would have been his own gimmick if he was a wrestler.
Right.
To be, you know, handed $2,000 a day in spending cash just to prove that the gimmick is a shoot. I mean, who doesn't hate a rich person that flaunts their money?
Seriously.
I mean, and then just the timing of it, like all the vignettes of making people kiss their feet, making people do things for money, and then somehow they just don't do it. And then he tells them, you don't get the job done, you don't get paid.
Right.
Like, doing it to kids, kicking kids out of swimming pools, and just coming up with the whole conniving plan of actually using the twin referees to steal the belt away from Hulk Hogan. You know, using Andre, brainwashing him, I guess you could say, to get the belt for him.
Yeah.
So he switches the refs, makes a bogus 3 count. Andre gets the belt and hands it over to Ted. I mean, that's just, you can't get any more, you know, businessman, government conniving scheme than that.
No. And
plan.
Yeah, it was. And the idea that basically you got Andre as a mercenary, essentially, to recover the title for you.
Who better?
Seriously, I mean, it was always the one thing that was the chink in Hogan's armor, you know. And
there's only one thing I wish they would have done different on that one is instead of stripping him of the belt and then doing the tournament at WrestleMania 4.
Right.
Because he actually did 2 matches on house shows with the belt, and they announced him as the champion.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was 2 tag matches, or I'm sorry, 1 tag match. It was Hulk and Bam Bam against him and Andre, and then I think he defended the belt against Bam Bam in a singles match.
Gotcha.
And after that, they, like the next week on TV, Jack Tunney said, you know, they strip him of the title, I'm going to make a tournament.
Gotcha.
But I wish that they would have actually let that go, because I think that would have created more heat, because if you strip him, it kind of kills his heat.
Right.
Like his plan this whole time for months, and then you just took it away.
Yeah.
I wish they would have let him have it, so he actually would have got credit for being, you know, the champion, because he deserves it.
Yeah.
And then actually have him and Macho Man wrestle each other, you know, in the main event of WrestleMania 4, and then Macho Man wins. That's the way I wish it would have happened.
And yeah, I totally agree with that. And I had never thought of that, but I absolutely think that would have been the better way. And then, you know, because they could have topped any WrestleMania ever as a main event. Those 2 guys together, I mean, come on, you know. Yeah. But then to make WrestleMania basically a tournament, you know, and, you know, then I love that idea. I think you're right. And then have the rest of the card be a normal WrestleMania card. Now, I know there were other matches on that, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, instead of the tournament style and that kind of thing, you know, when it comes down to it, have it as a regular Mania match.
Yeah, I guess they thought the drama, you know, they did it right, and, you know, making him go all the way, and then he actually got a bye.
Right.
In the finals on the one, so it's like he's sneaking his way in there, and Macho Man's got to wrestle 4 times to get it. But I still think it would have been better. I think there would have been more heat the other way.
Yeah. Can you imagine how much Randy got paid for that Mania, man? Wow. Oh my gosh. Have you ever worked 4 times in one show?
You know what? I think I might have on a lucha show.
Okay.
I think because they do a lot of multiple matches.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think I did a singles, a battle royal, a tag, and then a 6-man tag.
Okay.
I think I did 4 in one time. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool. Well, hey, you've done it. That's awesome. I like it. I didn't actually expect you to say yes, so I'm impressed.
Lucha shows have a lot of multiple matches like that. Well, at least they used to.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay. Well, I'm going to go to my number 5, and honestly, this guy could be number 1 and maybe is the number 1 all-time heel. And unfortunately, we recently lost him a few years ago. But, man, when it comes down to it, just to think about the time and the place and the opportunity and just the perfect time with the climate of political at the time and all this stuff going on in the world and the questions about foreigners and things like that. To me, one of the greatest heels of all time and I think one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, one of the greatest characters of all time, one of the greatest LJN figures of all time, the Iron Sheik. The one and only. I love him. You know, Khosrow, man, you know, he was known as much now for his quips against whoever, Raisin Balls, Hulk Hogan or whatever. But, you know, when it comes down to it, you know, he was just that villain, man. And when you saw him, it just made you know automatically, hey, that's a bad guy. Hawk 2, you know, he was the original Hawk 2, you know, that kind of thing. So
his family should get royalties for that.
They absolutely should, you know. But what a family man, though. That's the other thing, too.
Yeah,
you know,
that's surprising. Yeah.
Have you seen that documentary that he had? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I think it was just called The Sheik, right?
Yeah, The Sheik. Yeah, it's incredible. I think The Rock produced it or something like that. But it was on Netflix. I know you could probably find it on YouTube. But anyway, go watch that if you haven't. I'm sure most of you already have. But it really showed a different side that you almost don't expect from the Iron Sheik, you know. But you know, this guy with this legitimate background coming as an Olympic wrestler who came from he was the Shah of Iran's bodyguard. I mean, dude, that's, you know, it's like the king of Iran and he was the bodyguard of that dude. And yeah, when it comes down to it, man, the Sheik. And then plus the time frame, the 80s, you know, the Middle East, the Russians. I mean, we're always perfect heels. You know, I think the Middle East kind of took over for Germany, if you notice that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, the German heels kind of went away as the World War II had kind of gotten calmed down and Germany became an ally. But, you know, when Russia, you know, Russia and the Cold War, that was right there. And then you have the Iron Sheik. And then, of course, you have your man, Classy Freddie Blassie with them. Wow. What a combo, man. Incredible.
Yeah, Japanese in there with the German guys, too, because you had your big Japanese guys.
That's a great point. Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. And you know, the foreign menace, man, what a great, you know, person to play that role. He was so good. So good.
And it's what a great way to rally around as fans. You know, to be patriotic on your own country. And yeah, it's a good formula.
Yeah. And then, dude, could you do what was it? Those Persian clubs? Could you do that?
No way. There's no way.
You know, I've seen a video of Al Snow doing them recently, and I can't lie, I'm impressed by that. Don't get me wrong, Al, but you're not doing it the same way Sheik did it. It's a little different.
Yeah, I've seen. I think Paul Ellering did it, and he just goes straight back.
Right.
But Sheik would, you know, swivel him, kind of like
roll him
when he would do it. Yeah. Anybody's ever done it like that?
No, and I think that's how he did them so well, is he had that perfect technique. And, you know, I'm impressed that anyone can do that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Al, Paul, all of them, they're all incredibly strong gentlemen, but man, the Sheik, he did it right. And he had that little roll in his wrist, and dude, I can't imagine. I bet I couldn't even roll one of them with both hands, honestly. But
there's so many different, you know, I'm not accusations, but there's been so many stories about how much of those weigh. And as far as I've ever heard him say, I think they were 80, 85 pounds.
Wow.
A piece. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's such an awkward way. You know, it's not a curl, you know.
Yeah. And all that pressure on your wrist like that, too.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, incredibly strong, and he always had that power gut too.
Yes.
And again, a perfect rendition of him in that LJN figure, man. I think honestly, my brother and I figured this out, that the Iron Sheik and Hulk Hogan were like the first LJNs we got, and I'm sure that was very popular. And it's funny, I've heard stories about the size of his paycheck after he did that. And
yes. I've heard that too. His first royalty check was over $80,000.
Yeah, crazy, man. Anyway,
well, what about you? That you said that, because my number 4 is exactly him too. The Iron Sheik.
That's cool, man. Yeah,
so, perfect timing. I actually I'm sharing half of it with Nikolai Volkov.
Okay,
it's a team because they were just so good as a team. I think Iron Sheik, was a little bit more ahead on the heel side than Volkov was, just because he had more of a mouth with the fans.
Right.
I mean, either one of them could speak, perfect English, but he was just more vocal than Volkov would be, besides, the anthem and stuff. But just seeing old matches of those guys, Sheik would just heckle the crap out of the crowd. He'd give the salute, hitting the crook of your elbow and, raising the hand up, and he'd be flipping everybody off. Not with the finger, but, the crooked arm salute, I guess you call it.
Right.
And spitting on people and stuff. And just the tons and tons of garbage that would come in the ring, thrown at him was just unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
I so wish I was back in that time to feel that. I would love that.
Raining cups of whatever coming at you, and tobacco spit and all that good stuff. Yeah, that would be fun.
That'd be the fun part, the cups of pee and all that stuff. But
that would suck, but it would be heat, right? You can always take a shower, I guess, right?
That's what I want. Exactly. Yeah, he was one of a kind, that's for sure.
Totally. And you brought up a good point, actually, about Volkov and Sheik. I do think the Sheik was a little further ahead of him. I think he was probably a better actor, maybe, when it comes down to it. But Nikolai always had that, he's like, I hate him, but, I kind of feel like he's like a big, giant teddy bear in a way, too. He seemed like he was a genuinely nice guy, Yeah,
that's what I've always heard about him, too. And I think the Sheik is just nuts.
Yeah.
He was just so crazy like that, because he was crazy.
Yeah, and there's some great stories. Jamie Dundee has some incredible stories about the Sheik that are not fit for me to say, and I wouldn't want to share them without Jamie here anyway, so we'll just go with that. But what's funny is I actually played a Middle Eastern character later on as Prince Omar Al-Kazan, and I took a lot of my stuff from the Sheik as far as just some of the mannerisms, but I was never a wrestler, so it didn't fit perfectly anyway. And Scott, you and I were just not dark enough to do that gimmick well.
Right. Yep.
So you never did it, but I tried. So we'll go with that. But so I guess my number 4, is that it? Okay, well, the number 4 for me, again, could be a number 1 on anybody's. He really got across as a great baby face, especially for some of what we've been talking about. But my favorite era of this gentleman has always been as a heel, and I think his natural character fits so well for a heel. There's great men, there's strong men, there's tough men, but there's only one macho man, Randy Savage. Scott Spade, I'm telling you right now. Anyway, that's it.
I definitely dig it.
Yeah, dig it. Yeah, but man, Randy, just the craziness, the anxiety inducing paranoia that he would have, and I think that he used that, and you couldn't really tell if that was really him or was it not him. The sweetness of Miss Elizabeth. I know you have Mistress Misery as a valet, but she's a different style, right? But Miss totally different style, but Miss Elizabeth had this sweet demure lady from next door, and just it was the Beauty and the Beast, right? That's it.
Absolutely.
The Beauty and the Beast, and but anyway, Macho Man. I know Wolfie's probably mad that I just put him at number 4, but
yeah, I know he loves him.
Yeah, total Macho Man fan. But
one of the greatest of all time for sure.
No question.
One thing that made him so good, especially on the heel side, is that he was always on.
Right.
One of those guys that was always in character because he was his character.
Definitely.
That's what makes the best wrestling character gimmick, whatever you want to call it, is yourself turned up to 10.
Yeah.
If you can by yourself, I'm not going to have anybody give me my gimmick and tell me what to do, because how are they going to tell me what I'm going to think,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what I think because it's me. And he was that way. He just did everything so perfect. He was, again, very, very smooth, very crisp from jumping off the top rope with the elbows to the top rope to the out to the floor.
Yeah.
I think he was so good at both sides, heel and babyface, but I think I'm going with you too, that I think the edge just slightly in the heel side because I think he's one of those guys that is a natural heel.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, if you guys go back and listen to our George Weingroff episode, if you go back and listen to our Rip Rogers episode, you're going to hear some great Macho Man stories, as those guys both knew him very well at his very start. But the cool thing I love about the Macho Man was just the voice. I loved when he first came to the WWE and all the managers were vying for him like he was this hot new free agent. Dude, it's just incredible stories being done. And then, of course, he kept it going and, you know, in the WCW with the NWO and you know, it's just every part of he felt so tense at every moment. And I wonder if he ever, you know, like somebody comes up and rubs your back and, oh, you feel tense, man, whatever, you know, and I'm wondering if he ever didn't feel tense. I hope that he could let that be calm at least a little bit, but I don't know, man. He seemed like he was always there.
I've always wondered that myself too, because like you said, he was always like paranoid, not with the Elizabeth thing, but he was just always on edge of snapping. And it's like, does this guy ever relax?
Yeah.
When he's not at the show, you know, is he calm in the car? Is he calm at home? Or you don't know. But that's what made it so good. He made you not know.
Yeah.
That's what was so good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what about your number 3, man?
All right. These are some big heavy hitters. Top 3. One of my huge influences. Number 3 for me, same thing. He was, you know, some of these guys are so special too, because even though we're talking about heels, these are some of the most hated people of all time, but also at another point in their career, they were one of the most beloved people of all time. And I think, you know, a couple people we mentioned already were like that, you know, like Hogan and Slaughter.
Yeah.
Were 2 of the most, you know, hated and loved, you know, at different point in their careers.
Right.
My number 3 fits that for sure. But again, I think he's definitely a natural heel. He was a massive audience taunter and would even go out in the crowd and try to fight people at their reaction. And he did have a little goofy side to him, which I loved also.
Right.
But number 3 for me is the one and only Terry Funk.
Oh my God, bro. That's my number 3 too. Yes. So we can just embrace that and go with it. Yes. I love Terry Funk. Oh my God. And he could be my number 1 on any given day.
Absolutely.
And I know you love Terry Funk too, because when he passed, we were talking about him at the same time. And man, yeah. Oh my God, I love Terry Funk. I think
we're hitting all the same stuff at the same time, so that's cool that we're thinking a lot alike about.
And we didn't plan this, guys. This was a total surprise.
It's always folks.
Terry Funk to me is not only such a great heel that he was the baby face. You know, he got turned to baby face, but when he was a heel, man, oh my God, he's just. I could honestly say that, you know, a lot of people say Ric Flair. A lot of people are in good standing to say Ric Flair. A lot of people say, you know, Hulk Hogan. A lot of people say these. But I personally think that Terry Funk might be the greatest wrestler of all time. I almost think that that's the case.
Yeah, I'm very 50-50. I mean, because I love him so much. And between him and Harley Race is my for death 50-50 thing on the greatest ever. That's such a hard call. But he's done it for 50 years in every era, from the golden era of the 60s, you know, all through the best, you know, pure wrestling era of the 70s to the WWF 80s. I mean, to the hardcore deathmatch stuff. He did it all.
Yeah.
And he did it all really, really well.
Yeah, man. And just even the run. And I loved that he would be like, okay, I could be working anywhere right now, but I'm going to go help these guys in Philadelphia. I'm going to go help them out.
He was working with ECW and that's companies ever too. And he helped them out so huge. And that really made him, you know, endearing to the newer, younger crowd.
Yeah.
Love too, because that really cemented his legacy, I think, too, because the younger guys, the fans accepted him even though he was older. And that was like the era where, you know, get rid of the old people, I want new people kind of thing.
Yep.
They embraced him as like their hero. And that was really, really cool.
And him doing moonsaults at that age, man. Dude, I couldn't do a moonsault in my 20s. I mean, I don't. Have you ever done a moonsault? If you have, I'm cool with that. But
I have, but I've never done it actually in a match because I feel I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, right. It wouldn't make sense. Exactly. Yes. Good point. But there's got to be some, Shane Morton. It's got to make sense. I love it. But
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, but the funny thing,
there's nobody that will ever come close to touching anything that he's ever done. I don't think, because he was so convincing. Yeah. And him and the next two above on my list are, when I was putting this together, I'm thinking about what kind of fan reactions that these guys are getting. Right. And the two above me the two above him are a big influence on this list because of Riot starting.
Right. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Guys that do that like nobody else.
Yeah. And some of the guys that I left as honorable mentions, I think, man, they had such great real heat. I feel bad for not bringing them on the list, but I had to. The list, actually, when I started thinking about it, came out so quickly. I was like, holy cow, that was too simple. Hold on. Let me think. Who'd I forget?
Put them in order.
I know, exactly. But Terry Funk, to me, I just love. I love the carry. I mean, just he can carry a match, or he could also not have to carry a match. He could, but when he was in the ring, it didn't matter. He was going to be the center of attention. It's just the way, the natural thing. I still think about some of the funniest things, like, of course, him being the big heel against Hogan very early on, especially in the Saturday night's main event era of stuff. And then, of course, even in WCW, when they go in there and he gets kicked by that horse. Oh my God, that funny moment. Oh my God, I still laugh.
That's one of the parts about him too, is because he could put that funny humor in there, make it be his selling, in a circle, standing, wobbling around. And I mean, he made it so serious and so funny at the same time, where it was extremely believable. And he was the only guy that could ever do that.
Yeah. And that's what makes him such a one of a kind, man. Really.
Yeah. Half the time, watching his matches, when he is getting beat up, you're laughing because he makes it look so funny.
Yeah. That was one guy that I really severely, definitely wanted to have on a podcast. And unfortunately for me, at least, I came into podcasting at a time where he had started to have a bit of a mental health decline. Yep. And unfortunately it didn't link up and didn't happen. And I don't even know that I was even close to ever having him on a podcast. But that was like the one guy. And when he passed, I was like, man, that dream is over. Doesn't matter. But the good news is there's so much of Terry Funk out there. Right. I don't know that I would have added anything. It would have been more for me than anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But Terry, man, just God bless Terry Funk. Thank God for Terry Funk. That's all I can say. Wrestling would never be the same without him, and is not the same without him. So yeah. Anyway, well, so that was number 3. That was my number 3. All right, you're number 2 now, Scott.
Number 2. Well, you never know. It might be the same too, because we're getting down to the very end here. This one too, long career. I believe started in 1969 or 1970 when he was really, really young. Had a good run in L.A. and Portland and Georgia, and your territory, Mid-Atlantic, is I think where he. Actually, L.A. is where he came to prominence with Chavo Guerrero Sr.
Yes.
And then he went to Georgia, and then Mid-Atlantic. He really, really made a name for himself.
Yes.
And was the very first heel commentator alongside Gordon Soley for a while.
Yes.
The one and only Roddy Piper.
That's my number 2 as well. Oh my God. We did not plan this, guys. I'm serious. Another guy that could be number 1.
Thing where we think alike. I don't know.
Right. And it's true, because this is funny. We don't normally celebrate this when Wolfie's on here, but it feels like I should celebrate this. This is cool, man. But it's funny because when we double up on the Wolfie, like when Wolfie's here, it's just like, well, okay, let's talk some more about it. But this just feels like can we get to number 1 is what I'm thinking right now. It's crazy. Yeah. But dude, here's the thing. When I was thinking about heels, I automatically went back to 7-8-year-old Jimmy, right? And I'm like, okay, where who was what and I just remember that, obviously the Iron Sheik and Hogan, but the true villain for Hogan at that time was this guy, Roddy Piper. Okay. He died wanting to be the number one villain. I mean, he loved that. And another guy like Terry Funk, who had his family in mind first.
Yes.
And dude, have you ever, there was a house hunting show they did where he and Kitty are looking for a new home, and they're it was like a house hunting show. And then of course he did the wife swap with Ric Flair. If any of you have not seen any of these, I encourage you to go out there and see them, because it tells such an incredible story. And the one thing that stuck with me, and I think it was in the A&E documentary, but it was also in the house hunting show that they did, where Kitty would say that he would have to come home and stay in a hotel a couple nights maybe before he came to the family, because he needed to separate the road from the family. And so he needed to come down. And maybe there was other things involved in that, but I like to think of it as him purging the road so he can be the family man at home,
That for sure. Yeah, you got to get it out of your system and
right.
Adrenaline lowered a little bit. And yeah, I could see that. And we want to make sure nothing comes home with him.
Right.
As far as how his attitude or how he's feeling, and make sure he's, back to normal.
Yeah, I think he dealt with a little paranoia in his later part of his career, and maybe his whole career he had a little bit of paranoia. And I feel like maybe he didn't want to bring that to his family, because he was like, "Hey, look, I'm out here with pirates on the road.
Yeah.
Everybody's fighting for that number one spot." And, and he doesn't want to take that. Look, I don't have to fight my kid for the last waffle, like that's right. The thing. But, and then I've heard Hogan tell some stories, and bro, just like you, I'm a huge Hogan fan. Got to respect the man. But some of his stories, I wonder, like, is he kind of fixing some stuff that maybe didn't get fixed post, pre their death? And he talked about how he had talked to Roddy, and said, "Hey, Roddy, we could do business. I could drop the title to you and you could drop it back to me." And Roddy turned that down, said he wouldn't want to lose. And I've never heard Roddy Piper refute that. And I don't know that story even came out until his death. But do you know anything about what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've seen, there is a real good shoot interview, Kayfabe Commentaries it's called.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I think it was in the year 1984. And it was they did like a yearly series, and I think 84 they had Roddy Piper on there, and I don't remember if he said it exactly on that, but I think he said if he thought he had like a clean loss, he would lose his heat.
Oh, okay.
I think that was his issue. Again, I'm not 1,000% sure, but I think that's kind of where it was going to. But I mean, I don't think he would have ever had to worry about that, because he was so good.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think, Bobby Heenan's the most quick-witted guy I think ever in wrestling. I think Roddy Piper's the only guy that's right there next to him.
Yeah, amen. Exactly.
That he did, and just with the fans, and he had so much garbage and stuff thrown at him, and the stuff with Jimmy Snuka.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. It was just everywhere he went, it was money, it was gold. And just like you said with the Hulk and the Iron Sheik, they kind of got the machine running, but the thing really exploded into mainstream. I don't think if there wasn't a Roddy Piper, I don't think there would be a Hulk Hogan as popular as he got, because there was that heel there, so hated. And I remember that when he came in that Halloween Havoc.
Yeah.
When he came in kind of unannounced, he said, if they didn't hate me so much, do you think they'd be cheering you so much?
Right. I know.
That's pretty truthful,
Yeah, it is. It is.
He's just so good with his promos, and he's got that humor in there like Terry does. And he wasn't the most scientific guy in the world, but he could go if he had to, and he was definitely a fighter and a brawler, and he's just one of the best ever, for sure.
Have you ever seen that clip of him and Flair doing amateur wrestling in Mid-Atlantic?
Yes.
Where, dude, that shows you he could do it. But it's funny, he's one of those guys that he claims he never was trained, like Kevin Sullivan. He never really got trained. He just got in the business. And we think poorly of those guys today, right? Like we're like, that guy, you clearly can tell that dude ain't trained. But I think maybe their perspective of it is that they were probably just so naturally gifted that they got it figured out. But man,
it being such a closed business, you don't actually have like a training place.
Right.
The best place to figure out what's good and what's bad is actually in front of a live crowd.
doing it in the ring.
It's on the job training. Yeah. If it doesn't.
On the job. Yeah. It blew my mind when Kevin said that. And then I knew Roddy, So.
I love the stories too about not even smartening people up.
I know.
Getting trained.
I know.
They don't even learn it, just before they get in the ring for the first time or when the match is over, like, I was, and then they find out later.
Yeah. It's like, it's like Rick, it's like Wolfie and Rick Reynolds, obviously Wolfie was trained by Rick Reynolds, and Gypsy Joe was there to help him train by that, and whenever it comes down to it, it's funny when you get in the ring with somebody and then you get that seasoning, what they just did is instead of going to a school, they just skipped it and went right to the seasoning, and there, I mean, again, we frown on some of that now. But it's funny that, I guess theoretically some of the all-time greats could do that. So maybe, I don't know.
Too, is I've heard Wolfie say that his quote was the blind leading the blind. And I agree with that 100%.
Right.
Kids nowadays, when they get trained, it's the young guys against the young guys. Well, it's how do they know what they're supposed to do? In the old days, you could actually go out there and just start having matches with people because usually you were paired up with an older guy that was been around for, 10, 15, 20 years to teach them in the ring.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore either.
No.
And that's one of my main things is, when I do shows and stuff too, if I'm not involved in any, major angle or nothing like that, I'll tell the people, give me the young kid. Let me teach him.
Yeah.
I've always had that teacher kind of mentality too. And it's that lost art that I always say I don't want it to go away.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad that there's guys in the business that are still doing that because that's a very important part of, and it's so many of the guys that we know and love would not have been there without that. You know what I mean?
There's not many left either.
Yeah.
Everybody's out for me, look what I can do. And they don't think about, leaving it after they're gone or passing the knowledge down. People don't care about that anymore. And it's sad.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, we love you, Roddy Piper. We miss you, buddy. And you're definitely our number 2 on the top 10 heels list. What's your number 1, man? Let's see if we got this one.
Yeah, we're going to do this again. Number 1 of all time for me. Wasn't super mainstream, but, he was a huge name in the old days, of course. And he had pretty much pretty close to a between a 40 and 50 year career, might be the guy that created the most riots ever in the history of wrestling. Smaller guy, but again, one of the most feared people ever. And the very first guy I've ever seen throw fire. The guy that ran his own territory in Detroit.
Ooh.
The original Sheik.
Man. Well, that wasn't me. I didn't get him for number 1, but that is an incredible one, man. Oh, man.
I don't think anybody has created more chaos in front of live crowds, riots, and just being such scared to death of somebody. Like, even though he is a smaller guy, but he would get, when he would put that carpet out and do his praying on that carpet, I mean, he could do 15 minutes of trying to do that, and the people would just get on his case, and he would do that.
Oh, man.
And he'd be yelling at the crowd, well, not really yelling, but, motioning to the crowd, because he never really, he talks. He just
spoke.
And
right.
all sorts of stuff. And
it's like Sabu,
Too, the key to his thing, I think, too, also, is that he was one of the most protective guys of his gimmick ever.
Right.
He did it, and he kept it, he even, with his family, too. I remember hearing Sabu stories, too, where he even was kind of nasty at home. Just to keep up, even though it's his nephew, he was kayfabe, to the end. And that's something that I love and I like to do. You can't do it on that level anymore, but I wish it was like that. But yeah, he took it to that level where it was 24/7, 365 days a year of that character, and everybody was scared to death of him.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if you've heard the previous episode, Jimmy Powell on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, but when Gula shut down, a lot of the guys stayed in the South. They either went with Jerry Jarrett in Memphis, or they maybe went Pensacola or wherever with the Fullers, but he actually went north with Eddie Farhat, the Sheik, and went north and worked up there as Tex McKenzie Jr. If you guys haven't heard that episode, go check it out on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. But anyway, he told some great stories about the Sheik, and man, the Sheik, dude, he's just one of those guys that is, again, you know, so many people when they say Sheiky Baby, Iron Sheik, you know, he was the OG, man.
Yes,
that was the original. And
I think he started because I have the Blood and Fire book. It's a really, really good biography book written on him, and I believe he started in 1947, if I remember right. So he was way back then.
Yeah. And I've heard he wasn't the greatest payoff guy, but that's not what this list is about. We could probably make a great top 10 worst payoff guys. But when it comes down to it, though, man, he knew his gimmick. That was it. He caused riots. He used that gimmick to cause the riots. He used that gimmick to sell tickets to get people to come to see the babyface try to beat this long tenured heel that just we don't know that he'll ever get killed or taken out or ruined or removed or whatever. But
him and Bobo Brazil was one of the greatest feuds in the history of wrestling. It was 25 years long.
Right.
Those guys were together for such a long time, and it was really good. Him and Mark Lewin too. They had some really good matches, and man, that Fireball, man, when I saw that, I mean, he does it so good and so fast.
Yeah.
I've tried it a few times, but I can't get it anywhere near as perfect as he does. It's unbelievable. It comes out of nowhere, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and nobody does it as well as him. I mean, Tommy Heggie,
Jerry Lawler, I remember seeing
Jerry Lawler. Yeah, Jerry Lawler's great at it, but when it comes down to it, the Sheik is the best at that. But what's funny too is we talk about Sabu and Sabu honestly took a lot of that persona and kept it for him, and obviously the Sheik was not doing all of the crazy acrobatic spots that but I feel like Sabu, when it came down to it, his mind was still in the same place that his uncle had taught him.
Absolutely. It's all about the teaching, for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, great number one and great list, Scott. I definitely enjoyed that one, man. So my number one, I go way back here to my childhood again. Now, I would honestly say that probably saying this name, he's probably number one on a lot of people's lists for champion, babyface. I mean, whatever, promo, whatever, But to me, I still remember that little boy, that little Jimmy Street watching TBS, the Superstation, and seeing this evil, rich, cocky heel rub my beloved Ricky Morton's face in the concrete. And that is the one and only Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Yeah, you can't deny that for sure. This stood the test of time. Again, another 50-year guy that you could easily say is the greatest wrestler of all time.
Yeah, greatest champion of all time, greatest NWA champion of all time, greatest whatever. I mean, I think Harley Race might be the greatest NWA champion of all time, but we'll get into that subject another time
too.
Yeah. But again, when I think of Ric Flair, I think of the Horsemen. I think of, NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, and that guy was just everything about the 80s, much like the $1 Million Man. He was everything about the 80s that you hated. But I noticed that all my older cousins loved him. You know what I'm saying? Like the older kids are like, oh, that dude's cool. He's getting chicks. He's got money. He's probably got an awesome car. Look at that suit he's wearing. He's cool, and you would notice it in the crowd, even on the Superstation shows when there was like 25 people there, you would notice there'd be 4 or 5 guys dressed up like the Horsemen. Yep. So, he was fitting a role, and he was really starting a babyface turn at that point. But, being the number one heel on the program, I really went back and forth with the Piper Flair deal. I could have made Piper number one. I could have made Flair, but I just thought about as what would the little Jimmy across the street do? What would he put on there? Who would he say is the worst? And ultimately, I watched just a little bit more Crockett than I did WWE. And when it comes down to it, I think Ric Flair's that. And man, the Nature Boy gimmick too, man. I mean, what is that, other than flashy, best at what he does? I mean, you had Buddy Landale, you had Buddy Rogers. I know there's some other Nature Boys that I'm not thinking of, but anyway, as far as the major ones, Ric Flair And when it comes to that, I think the heel element of it, I don't know any good babyface Nature Boys. Maybe there were, but I can't think of any. But that's a weird thought, right? But anyway, Ric Flair. And wait, let me just say this. Is Jungle Boy a nature boy? I mean, because jungle and nature, but I don't know. Never mind. We won't get into that. Ric Flair, number one heel. That's my pick. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, that's a really good one, too. I just didn't have him on my list because it was more the flamboyant versus the evil.
Sure, and that makes sense.
Yeah,
and I'm not a flamboyant heel.
Obviously.
Yeah.
He's a great one, too. But, yeah, I think he was that 75-25% where that crowd did like him because he was so cool.
Right.
He dressed so good, and he looked so good, and he was such a good wrestler. And the women thing, but then at the same time, that pisses everybody off, too, because here's this guy, looks like he's got a lot of money, says he's the best in the world. Yeah. He's got the best clothes. He's got the best cars. He's got all these women. So it's going to make everybody jealous.
Right.
And I remember stories of like Kevin Sullivan, too, and other guys like the heels. You know, obviously that's what the draw was for people to come to the shows.
Right.
You always have the heel. The guys would want to come to the show to beat the heels up. So that it would draw the guys there because he was a pretty boy and was bragging all the time. But then it would draw the women there because they were liking what they were seeing. So it was like a double win, you know, at the same time. So it would draw both the men and the women, you know, from the same guy. You know, this whole Horseman image that era was just so amazing. That 85 to 88 run that they had was just so good. Yeah. And you couldn't have four of the better workers. They were just pure wrestlers.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't agree more. Yeah. Can't agree more. You know, and it's funny to me too that you said that way, because it is true. Like the element of the crowd coming to the show absolutely sets it up in a perspective of like, you know what, this guy is money, and whether he's drawing him in for the one reason of the guys wanting to kill him or the women wanting to be with him or the guys wanting to be him, you know, it doesn't matter. He's getting the point across is what you're saying, and I like that. And but I do like that you stuck to the dastardly villains too, in a way. You know, I like that. It says a lot about you in a way. You know, it says a lot about your fandom too, which I think is awesome.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the very first like heel that I ever liked was Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
As I got a little bit older, you know, after I stopped hating them, you know, when you're a kid, you know, thinking.
Right.
You know, watching those guys when you were a kid when you didn't know any better yet. But, you know, once you start figuring stuff out, then it's like, oh, he was really good.
Yeah. And the cool thing about Flair is everything that you hated about him, he backed it up in the ring, though, too, you know. And that's another thing with Ted DiBiase as well. And really, any of the guys on our list, they backed up their villainy with in-the-ring ability, you know. And
that was the era back then. You had to be able to go, and you had to people believe, and I just wish it was still like that.
I do too, man. All the heels now, I just don't even buy them as heels.
No,
some of them.
I don't even know if there even really is anymore.
Yeah, it's a great question, man.
All in the middle. They're all tweeners, I guess you call them.
They're all tweeners. And to me, you know, I was even thinking about all the things you just described about Ric Flair. That actually closely describes Cody Rhodes right now. And he's like supposedly trying to be the number one babyface. I almost feel like he should turn heel or something now.
It's hard for a Rhodes name to be heel, though.
I know, man. So hard, you know.
I've seen him a little bit. Like I said, I don't watch wrestling. It's been, 20 years since I watched it on TV. But I know I've seen matches with him, and he's really, really good.
Yeah, talented kid, wrestles and actually has good mic skills too. But anyway, well, Scott, bro, thank you so much for coming on. You know, I hate that Wolfie missed it. You know, he missed a great episode, but
to get some conversation with him. But maybe we will in the future here.
Yeah, we'll get you back for another top 10. We just got to put it together and get it going. This was a weird week. You know, Saturday obviously was the Hall of Fame induction. And yeah, so first of all, Scott, I got to thank you for coming in, filling in. Again, you were not a fill-in for Wolfie. This was planned to have Wolfie here. It worked because you were here, and I greatly appreciate that. And I know Wolfie does too, man. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I can't thank you guys enough for having me on. And like I said, this is such a passion of mine. I love wrestling, more than anything. It's my life. And I love having good conversations with both of you guys. And I've known, Wolfie for a while. We've only been, acquaintances, I guess you could say, seeing each other at shows here and there. But he's a real good dude. And I wish, he was able to get on here. And you and I have now become very friendly with our chats, just through texting and doing the shows and stuff too. And it's been a really, really good time, and I hope we can do this again for sure. And I really appreciate you thinking of me and having me on.
Absolutely, Scott. And it's a booked deal, man. We'll get you back on soon, I promise. And if you really liked hearing from Scott on today's episode, highly recommend going to episode 45 of Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, checking out Scott's story on there. It's a 2-hour episode that we got in with him and had a lot of fun and got to hear your story. And I highly recommend that. If you're a fan of what you heard today from Scott Spade, go check out his story on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. And that is a shameless self-plug. Yes. Well, thank you, Scott.
It means a lot to me. And just like they say, if you call me, I will come.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time. All right.
All right. Take care.
DJ.
Hold on, DJ. Don't hit shit. Man, I told you I was going to be back.
You made it, dude.
Oh, my God. I made it back. I told you I would.
Yeah, I know you did, bro. But I mean, I was kind of worried about Michelle. I was worried about you. Obviously,
we all right. We still here. We ain't great, but we're still here.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, me and Scott, we finished it, man. Well, and I already kicked it to Ask Wolfie, man.
Well, all right. Good God. This is my show, right?
Yeah,
last time I checked.
But we know the rules.
Can I get my list?
No. It's Ask Wolfie, man. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. We'll get it next week.
Jimmy. Whoa. It's my show. This is my show. And you already hung up with Scott?
He's gone, man. I'm sorry.
He's gone. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll give him a big apology. And I love you, but this is my show, right?
It's the Wolfie D show. Yeah, you're right. Live and in color.
The Wolfie D show. I thought we called it Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me get my list, man. Let me get my list. I told the people I'd be back, and I'm a man of my word. And here I am. Can I get my list? And if you want to talk about it, we can.
Just hold on just a second. All right. DJ, hit the music. All right, we are back with Ask Wolfie D Anything. Of course, we had top 10 heels, and Wolfie's finally back, man. I'm so happy, And
hey, I told you were trying to cut me off, man. I just wanted to get my top 10. I told you I'd be back.
Okay, well, how about just let's answer the first question and see where we're at, okay? Let's just try
What question? Are we going to...
Ask Wolfie. It's Ask Wolfie. All right.
Hey, okay. So I'll tell you this. Here we go. First shoot. Ask me one question, and then I'm going to give you my top 10.
Okay. All right. This is from listener Scott Spade from Chicago, Illinois. Wolfie, what is your top 10 heels of all time?
Okay. All right. Kind of a rib. Okay. Ha-ha, guys. Ha-ha, guys. Ha-ha, Scott. Ha-ha, Jimmy. Oh, y'all are so funny.
I got you.
All right. So, seriously, I made it back as quick as I could.
Thank you.
It's been a wild week, man. It's been a wild week. So I had my list. And when, I told you I had to go, y'all started recording. I told you I couldn't be back. I couldn't. So
we tried, man. We tried. And you tried. So we're good.
So I don't know what y'all's list is. And this will be kind of cool to see if any of these people, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Is on y'all's list. But I'm going to go ahead and start. And then, since Scott's gone, Jimmy, I'm going to let you chime in on where my people rank with y'all's people, and we'll talk about it. You know what I mean?
Sounds good.
All right. So, folks, here we go. Wolfie D's top 10 heels. Starting at number 10, going up to number 1. Number 10, the biggest babyface that changed the business in the 80s, Hulk Hogan. In my mind, Hulk Hogan was the number 10 heel because once he changed, that was a thing, man. And for number 10, I don't know. Did y'all have that?
So Scott had Hollywood Hulk Hogan as number 10. So you were right with Scott. And mine was $1 Million Man, unfortunately. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yours is a great one, man. I think that's a great one.
I mean, I just think, man, because I mean, maybe of our age group or whatever. I mean, he was the hero, and then all of a sudden he was, you know, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And,
yeah.
You know, the people were throwing stuff at him and all this kind of stuff. And he was never a heel before that. He was the biggest baby face, changed the business forever, And
Absolutely.
so I think that, I mean, he didn't get the most heat, but it was just a thing, man. It was just a thing.
Yeah.
All right. My number 9 is New Jack. I'll tell you why. New Jack, man, in Smoky Mountain. That was some serious, they couldn't handle that today heat.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That was, did either one of y'all have him on there?
So my number 9 was Kevin Sullivan. His number 9 was Vince McMahon.
But so neither one of y'all had New Jack on your list?
Unfortunately not.
Well, I think that he deserves to be in it because, I mean, look at the shit he did, man. Like, heel in real life and heel in wrestling, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
Threw what's his face off the scaffold, stabbed people, and honestly, in Smoky Mountain, caused riots. I mean, it was crazy, man. I mean, I think that's what a heel is, man. If you can make people believe you're an asshole, that's where it's at. And today's game, it's really hard. You've heard me say this 1,000 times. When you're trying to convince someone you're an asshole and they already know that's your gimmick, it's hard to do. But they hated New Jack. They hated him.
Yeah. And we loved him for it.
They hated New Jack. So my number 8 is Ric Flair.
Ooh.
Where was he on y'all's?
Okay, so he's actually
nowhere?
Number 1. He's on my list as number 1.
Number 1?
Yeah. But okay, so my number 8 was Rick Rude, and his number 8 was Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah.
So.
Well, okay. So I think, and this is the cool part about this, man, that me and you have done before. It's like, I'm thinking about it a different way. I think Scott is too, and you are too.
Yeah.
But Flair, man, like, I mean, as a heel, like, I just remember as a kid, like, the 4 horsemen would run in.
Yeah.
You couldn't beat him.
Nope.
And that's why he was, 87 times champion, because the horsemen would run in, you couldn't beat him and be like, fuck, man. My guy, Sting, or whoever was trying to beat him couldn't beat him because of the horsemen. So
Ricky Morton,
that made him a huge heel to me. And then, the interviews, it was just like, he's an asshole. I don't have no idea how to be the swinging, dealing, kiss stealing, all that shit. I don't have no idea how to do that at 10 years old,
Yeah. I mean, but that was why I picked him as my number 1, to be honest, is because at my most pivotal moment in wrestling fandom, just like you find in Memphis for the first time, and that was your wrestling, right? My pivotal moment was that heel Ric Flair rubbing Ricky Morton's nose in the ground. That was that's all it took for me to hate him forever. Although I love him. Ric Flair's amazing, but you know what it is.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm coming on my number 7.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why he's my number 7, because I honestly never got to see this guy in person before I got in the business. But I picked up the magazines, man.
Yeah.
And his eyes and the stuff that I would see rarely, on video or something. It was just like, this is a weird, mean man. Abdullah the Butcher, man.
Oh, dude. Yeah. And you know what? I actually expected him on Scott's list. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. I love Abdullah, but unfortunately, he wasn't on mine either. And that's a shame.
That's what makes our show good, because there's a whole bunch of different opinions.
So let me actually tell you real quick who we had, okay? Just so he had Jake Roberts at number 7, and I had Mr. Perfect at number 7. So, yeah. Sorry. Now you.
All right, so I'm going to keep going here. So Abby, though, just because he was, God, man, just even when I met him and even still after, and, the whole deal with the cloth and all that. So,
he was intimidating, right?
Yeah, very much. His eyes, man, and he was so huge, and I don't know, just, and he would just bleed and whatever.
Stab your hero.
So, yeah. So number 6 for me, the Honky Tonk Man.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Man, the Honky Tonk Man back in them days, man, with it was Bill. It was Bill Dundee, but it was country music, but just the whole. He's a honky tonk man.
Yeah,
and I just thought he sold it so good that everybody hated him. Man, I thought he was a great heel. Honestly, man, it was just the Elvis impersonator gimmick. I thought Honky Tonk Man was one of the greatest heels.
Absolutely. Scott's number 6 was Freddie Blassie, especially the teeth filing kind, Freddie Blassie. My number 6 was Jake Roberts. Okay. So, but Honky Tonk Man, what a great pick, man. I love that. I do.
No,
I think
honestly,
that's a good one.
I love this that y'all are so off with y'all. Yeah. Y'all are dumb. Seriously. All right. So here goes my number 5. And I'm going to tell you why. Before I say it, man, can you really do a vignette? I mean, you could in the 80s, but you couldn't do it now. Kicking a basketball out of a little black kid's way or whatever. But Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, was your fucking heel of the 80s. That shit was so fucking awesome.
Yeah, he was
made you mad. It made me mad. And it wasn't even there's always been racism, but man, it just made you mad back then.
Right.
And it wasn't even like it is now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So he was your number 5, right? $1 Million Man.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So we've had our first double up. Okay. Scott's number 5 was $1 Million Man. My number 5 was Iron Sheik. So
all right.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, man, those vignettes with Virgil and what they used to do. I mean, that was brutal. You couldn't get away with it now. I can tell you that.
No.
So my number 4 is a man that's he's out of the business. He's out of the business, but he made the business, and is Vince McMahon.
I mean,
Mr. McMahon was a huge heel, and I'm going. The reason I put him at 4 is I'm going with the Mr. McMahon thing against Stone Cold. That's what I'm going with there. I mean, then there's also behind the scenes where guys wanted to fucking choke him. You know what I mean? Nails, and you heard all the stories where people want to fucking kill him.
He wants to choke girls.
Top 10 for sure. Real life heels.
Yeah,
and then also wrestling heels.
Yeah, so Scott's was Sheik and Volkov together. He did a tag team. I told him that wasn't allowed, but he did it anyway. And mine was your favorite wrestler of all time. Who is that, Wolfie?
Randy?
Yeah, Randy Savage was number 4.
Wow.
Because, again, my pivotal moment in life, Randy was the best heel on the block, man. So,
man, I get that. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil this for you, man. Randy's not in my top 10 heels.
Well, I get it. You probably never saw him as a heel.
No, I didn't. And I don't. Man, he's so over. He's got Slim Jim sticking out of his head.
I know.
7-Eleven.
I know. He's the eternal babyface now. But at a time when I loved wrestling the most, Randy Savage was one of the best heels in the absolute business, man.
He was, but I don't know, man. I can't put okay, so I got 3 more. And I can't put him in this category, man, as far as how much people hated him. You know what I mean? Because I think they loved him.
Yeah.
Randy Savage was loved. He was a heel, but he was loved. He's like Stone Cold,
Yeah.
All right, so my number 3 is what some people, this is so funny. He's one of the most mixed up names in the wrestling business, Roddy Piper.
Oh, man.
No, Roddy Piper. No,
right, Roddy.
Piper was awesome. Piper was awesome, man.
Yeah, he was great.
The coconut over Snooka's head was, I mean, you can't top that, man. Come on.
No, and then I think that's great. Yeah.
His voice and just the way he delivered his stuff, man, his interviews. It was a long, and see, I wish, I'm not going to say I wish, because I think Jake also had those kind of deliveries, but Jake also was so good that he was a babyface. Right. I love Jake the Snake Roberts because he was so cool. You know what I mean? And his interviews were so cool. But Piper was a dick, and he gave his interviews that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm gonna lead ahead just 2 seconds here. Our number 3, Scott and I both tied with Terry Funk, so we did a double up. And unfortunately, he and I both chose Roddy Piper for number 2. So anyway, you keep going on your pick. You know,
I'm about to fuck y'all up because my number 2 is somebody that loved me and Jamie. He got us our gimmick in the Nation Domination. And what a booker, and what a, bless his heart, a liberal mind. James E. Cornette, man, one of the best podcasts in the world, but he loved me and Jamie. And the reason I say this is not only the heat that he got in the wrestling business and the interviews he cut and the tag teams that he was with, he's still getting heat today and making money for it. So that's my number Big 2 money. Is James Cornette, man. Fuck, if anybody has a problem with that, come see me.
They're idiots if they have a problem with that.
Number 2, Jim Cornette. Seriously, biggest heel of all time.
Love that.
And then, man, that fall out of the scaffold. Ugh.
Big Bubba didn't catch him. Big Bubba should catch everyone, right? But
I guess. Let's have him on the show and ask him about that. Why didn't you catch him?
Well, Big Bubba Rogers, unfortunately, is gone. But we could have.
Who do you think my number 1 is? I want you to guess.
Ooh, number 1. Wow, bro. You said.
Who do you think it is? I just want you to guess. I just want to see what you come up with. I mean, I know I'm late.
Iron Sheik.
Things have been going on.
Iron Sheik.
That's funny, Jimmy, because I guess me and you have been doing this podcast for how long now?
3 years now.
Yeah. My number 1 is the Iron Sheik.
I'll
tell you why.
Yes.
Yep. And I'll tell you why is because it was the right time at the right place. They had to get him out of buildings, because of politics and things like that. And hell yeah, man, he could work, he could do everything, and it was awesome. And people hated him. They threw stuff at him.
Seriously,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was the lead on the cartoon, and man, come on, man. That to me, the Iron Sheik is the number 1 heel of all time, and I don't think that will ever be topped.
I love that. I mean, I'm with you on that, man. I'm going to change my list right now. I'm not going to do that, but I do think the Iron Sheik is one of those legendary heels that I agree with you will never be replicated.
Fuck the Hulk Hogan, and he's still doing it after he's gone. He's still
how does that
tweeting?
Happen?
He's still tweeting after he's gone. Fuck the Hulk Hogan in his butt.
Twitter from heaven. Says. Yeah, Twitter from heaven. So
bless his heart.
Yeah,
but I'll never forget the first time I ever. It was when I met him. It was in WWE and or WWF back then, and he looks over at me. He knows I'm a jabroni, a fucking jabroni, and he looks over at me, bag, and he pulls out a hairdryer. Right? He pulls out a hairdryer, and he pulls out a little comb. He has no hair. We know this, right? And he's got the fucking pretty little gimmick thing. Hey, Bubba. Hey, can you help me out over here? You know what I'm saying? He's combing his little beard and blow drying it. Hey, Bubba, can you help me? What do you want me to do, Sheik? What do you want me to do? How can I help you on this?
Right.
You're blow drying it and yeah. He was a super carny and. Man, who's ever doing his Twitter and all that kind of stuff, keep the dream alive. I love it.
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That was a great list.
Hulk Hogan. And he figured it out, man. He could do that. Howard Stern, all that kind of stuff. He figured it out. And I'm telling you, that's why I say biggest heel of all time. Not only, with the Hulk Hogan stuff, and they had to, escort him out of venues because at that time, politics, but that kind of stuff right there, just because he was just a heel, man. And if you've ever watched his biography, man, that's who he was, and it was just right place, right time, great person, great time. I don't know how else to say it, man. It's just, it's just like that, man.
It was perfect. It was a perfect
timing. It's kind of like PG-13. They just came together.
PG-13. And guess what they just did, Wolfie D?
Yeah. I can't remember.
You all went into the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir.
That.
We're going to talk about that next week. We're going to talk about the whole show, and it was awesome. It was humbling, and I can't wait to talk about it and can't wait to tell the people about it.
Yeah, and I've even got some cool audio clips that I gathered around the show. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's awesome, Jimmy. Well, I'm glad I could make it in here. I'm sorry I was late.
You did it. You made it.
Yeah, and I hope y'all like my list. And I'm sorry I couldn't make it during the time, and I apologize to Scott Spade. But yeah,
you made it.
Show, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Good show. So next week, tune in. We're gonna recap, and we've got some good stuff on YouTube. Jimmy's gonna put some stuff up there, the acceptance speech, and all kinds of other stuff. Y'all tune in next week. It's gonna be good on YouTube and all the other stuff that you listen to us on. So thank you so much, guys. Man, on that one, Jimmy, I can't tell people how much I loved the Hall of Fame ceremony.
It was fun, man. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I love you, man. You and Ben were there. I love Ben. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
See you guys.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to uswapodcast.com.
Hey, it's the Heat Miser Scotty Blaze. Now I'm inviting all of y'all to join me on my brand new podcast, Turning Up the Heat with the Heat Miser Scotty Blaze. So what are you waiting for? Come on over and join me. I'll be covering all the events of the day, global, national, pop culture, movies, gaming, whatever sounds interesting. But I'll also be playing some awesome skating shuffle music from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. Anything that has a good beat, I'm going to be playing it. You can rest assured. Come on over, TUTHradio.com. The podcast is on every major podcast platform. See you then.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at Warren Wolf 13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personally personalized any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap
for your dome.
And here we go. The original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth. Still livin' in color. From rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was NOD, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip hopping. Been doing it like this since 92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.